While President Donald Trump is very fond of proclaiming that the Iran nuclear deal was an embarrassment and a horrible deal, he neglects to remember that the USA was not the only party to this deal, and in fact, was literally forced to the table by the P51 nations, which included Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, China, and France, in the face of great opposition by the huge money and lobbying powers of Saudi Arabia, Israel and the NeoConservatives in the United States. But the deal makes sense because it diplomatically and without firing a single shot managed to disarm the Iranian government for the foreseeable future of nuclear weaponry while jump-starting diplomatic, defense, and trade relations by and between this formerly isolated nation of Iran and all of the aforementioned countries above, in terms of trade and defense ties, all of which lead to global peace, stability and prosperity. The deal also allowed for unprecedented access for inspection any and all corners of Iran by outside entities to ensure that they were not developing weapons of mass destruction as well. All too often President Trump and the desperate members of the organized and well-funded opposition to the Iran nuclear deal forget that Iran is a bona fide enemy of the ISIS terrorist group, or maybe they don't, since they created, funded, armed them, which was funded, trained, armed, and facilitated by the Saudi, neocon, European, and Israeli fringe groups in their intelligence and business circles, who quite frankly are the international super-oligarchs who formerly controlled 99% of the world's wealth and military power, but whose wealth, money and power are waning daily with the rise of the great consolidated powers of the East. This small international oligarch group of people care little about the vast population of the globe, almost 8 billion people, and once they eliminate all of their opposition in the world, they would have no use left for any of them, and mass depopulation would most probably ensue. See Henry Kissinger's National Security Memo 200 for further guidance on this issue. The only ones standing in the way of complete and total unbridled power, militarily and financially, are the very bloc that is forming right before our eyes in the East, and decertifying the Iran nuclear deal would only push all of them closer in terms of defense and trade ties, i.e., China, Russia, Iran, Eurasia, Europe, and now, latecomer and former NATO ally, Turkey. These entities know far too well that it is in their best interests to stick together, and work together, rather than continue to be a client state of the USA, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. Pulling out or decertifying the Iran nuclear deal will also have the unfortunate effect of causing every single nation in the world to never trust US diplomacy again, and they would never enter into another defense or trade agreement with the US to disarm, because they know that it would never be upheld. Hence the only way the US and global community would ever get North Korea to disarm and abandon the nuclear program would be through outright war, terrorism, and death, and many tens millions of Americans would die as well, if not completely obliterated. While the Iran nuclear agreement was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination in terms of US and Israeli interests 100%, compromise is always part of a deal. But at least the US, Israel and global community know that Iran will not have nuclear, chemical or biological weapons anytime soon, and this could also, if played correctly, by an open door to extremely lucrative and mutually beneficial defense and trade ties, which would make everyone money, and feel secure in their homes, rather than decertifying the deal and placing them on a fast horse towards becoming a full-blown nuclear chemical biological weapons state that doesn't do business with either the US, Israel or Saudi Arabia at all, merely forcing them to be in the camp of Eurasia, China, Russia, Turkey, Europe, and beyond. The periodic temper tantrums of President Donald Trump are now causing a rift in his own national security team, including Defense Secretary James Mad Dog Mattis, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, and plenty of others. The Iran nuclear deal is also wholeheartedly supported by a huge swath of patriotic and risk-averse career intelligence and defense officials within the state of Israel itself, within its Mossad, Shin Bet, and government, if not already pushed out by Netanyahu. Only Trump and Netanyahu are screaming all by themselves on the mountain tops. The fact remains that the only ones who would benefit from the US decertifying pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal would be the international bankers and corporations, and flyover wealthy oligarch Americans, Israelis and Saudis, who all owe no loyalty or allegiance to any of their home nations or people, and will make a financial killing in the new and burgeoning oil and gas industries emanating out of the Silk Road of China, surrounded by Russia, Iran, Turkey, Eurasia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and ironically enough, Europe. Meanwhile, the people of the USA and Israel will be isolated like no other time in the history, unable to have defense or trade ties with any of these nations, all the while the Saudi petrodollar continues to tank, with their country and nation teetering on the brink of existential abyss, because you simply cannot have 3,000 family members completely control and oppress 33 million angry, poverty-stricken people in the year 2017. The USA needs to replenish itself in the waters of one of its greatest founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, and remember his statement of peace, commerce and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none. At least in theory. Otherwise the USA and Israel will just go the way of the Nazis, hated, reviled, isolated, attacked, and ultimately, extinct. Did you find this article informative? Please consider contributing to Eurasia Review, as we are truly independent and do not receive financial support from any institution, corporation or organization.